Thank you very much, Horatio. I have a few slides because I have a few data to share with you. So maybe they could come to the screen now. Well, they're not coming. In fact, yes, they are coming. There is one question here. It's, are IFRS responding to investors' needs? Basically, it's the question that you ask us. Well, I would say, and following what Amaro and Horatio just said, I would say, yes, more and more, but there is a but. There are some challenges. And I believe that the challenge is to continue to respond to investors' needs and to have really a useful and understandable information. If I take Brunello Cucinelli image, I believe that information is going to the mind of the investors, who should be understood by investors. Maybe one day they would go to their heart. We'll see. The next slide is how we at crossroads, IFRS. IFRS has been, the next slide, please. Well, I don't know. Should I move the next slide myself? No. The technical maybe is already shut down, so I will continue. I believe that the ISB has really a very significant opportunity now. A lot has been done in the globalization of accounting standards. A lot has been done by the program of convergence and the memorandum of agreement with the FISB. A very significant number of new standards and very important standards have been released. And the last one, which has been mentioned by Amaro on leasing, is quite important as well. The opportunity, and now there is a thinking about the IFRS structure and effectiveness, reviewed by the IFRS Foundation. The work program is also being reviewed regularly by the board. The opportunity is now to take a step forward, certainly. And also, there is an opportunity at the regulators level to improve consistency, to improve the relevance also of the financial information. That's why we welcome very much the disclosure initiative which have been taken by the board, but also the exactly same type of initiatives taken by ESMA, for example, in Europe, and by other countries. So there has been a global journey, and I would say a few words about the European perspective and how we can improve relevance. The next slide is about the global journey. You will see that, and on the ISB website, the ISB is doing a survey. These are the results of the 2014 ISB survey of country profiles. You see that 116 countries are requiring IFRS for domestic listed companies that include IFRS which are endorsed. IFRS are allowed for domestic listed companies in 12 other countries. IFRS are required by financial institutions for 2 additional countries. This is a pretty significant move. And if you imagine that in those 2 figures, you have effectively Japan coming to IFRS and allowing for large Japanese company to apply IFRS. And India has recently moved to IND AS, which are pretty close to IFRS because the carve-outs that they have decided will not be very significant in terms of financial impact. IFRS versus US GAAP. You see where IFRS were in 2004. Just before the EAS regulation in Europe. Now we are effectively with full IFRS or converged IFRS, really at around more than 50% of countries and applied by much more in terms of countries, but more than 50% global Fortune 500 companies. So you see that the dominance of US GAAP is history now. The bilateral convergence between, as was mentioned by Horatio, The convergence between US GAAP and the IFRS has been seized for the moment, but there have been some very important steps in leasing and revenue. So maybe it's time to slow the pace of convergence, but you will see that IFRS is really setting the worldwide standard. What is the European perspective? We have been applying IFRS since 10 years. So we have had a report from the Commission recently. Basically, IFRS has already mentioned by Orazio, improved transparency and comparability, certainly improved access to capital markets. Quite a positive outcome. Obviously, the Commission is making some recommendations. Extending the scope of IFRS in Europe versus applying the 2013 directive. There is a debate about extending the scope on the unregulated markets for companies listed on those markets. There is a debate there. I believe that we are going to see in Europe more and more companies in the unlisted market, for example, or to be applying more and more IFRS. What was the response to financial crisis? Diverse, certainly, but useful. Still, we have an issue of volatility. Still, we have the issue of the debate on fair value. But I believe that with the efforts of the regulation, with the effort of the regulators, we certainly have more consistency. There is certainly a journey to more consistency. And this journey is going to be quite long and difficult in Europe. But I believe that we'll get there one day. We'll get there thanks to ESMA. We'll get there thanks to effectively companies being more and more used to apply IFRS. And also the disclosure initiatives I already mentioned is going to help because it's going to request companies, request CFOs to focus on what is important in their financial statement, how to best depict financial performance, what information is relevant in the footnotes, and how to make sure that what is said in the footnote is really coherent with what is said in the management report. So this is quite important. We'll be moving progressively with that, and I believe the disclosure initiative would help you rather than make your life more difficult. So the challenges, obviously, to respond to the question I had in the first slide. Presentation of financial statements, very important challenge I already mentioned. There are some discussion on the conceptual framework. There is a discussion currently on the conceptual framework on the exposure draft. Some interesting discussion about fair value versus historical cost. And the model of the ASB is not a full fair value model, it's a mixed model, and I believe this is quite useful. There is a discussion about the business model. Business model have been introduced in certain of the standards, for example, IFRS 9. There is a discussion about financial performance. Those themes are quite relevant, and I believe companies should take part of this discussion. They should give their input to the board on this discussion. This is quite important because who knows more than the companies about financial performance and how to depict best financial performance? Who has a day-to-day discussion with the investors? You have the day-to-day discussion. So we welcome, certainly in the firms, your input, but certainly the ASB certainly welcome your input as well. There is a financial stability debate still. I believe that there is a debate in the US about amortization of goodwill. The debate is coming and going and coming back. We'll see. Financial instruments, I believe we'll have to wait until full implementation of IFRS 9. I believe it will be quite useful. Conchita mentioned integrated reporting. There is where we have an opportunity, and the opportunity is certainly not to be absent for the discussion of the integrated reporting, because it should be coherent, and the financial reporting should be part of it, should be a significant part of it. One of the key elements and the key advantage of financial reporting, it is that it is audited reporting. And when we are discussing new standards, when you are discussing the complexity of applying standards, What is key for us in terms of auditors is the auditability of the standards. Auditability improves relevance, certainly. So I would finish by saying that IFRS is certainly setting the world standard. It's certainly, I mentioned some of the challenges and debate. It's certainly a balance and harmony in the debate that we should have. And maybe we should be also inspired, and I will cite another Italian, very important people. We should be inspired by Luca Pacioli, here, where the divine proportion can be seen very close to here at the Pinacoteca Ambrosiana. Thank you very much.